Webby and welcome back to another video. As you can see, I've finally got a Tesla Model 3 on the channel to review. I've been trying for a long time to get hold of a Tesla and unfortunately I sent many emails to Tesla. They didn't actually reply to me. Whether they got the email or not, I don't really know. So yeah, I had a real struggle to get hold of one of these cars. But thanks to the sponsor of today's video, Evee, they've actually lent me this car for 2 days to review, but also try out their electric car sharing platform. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how that all works a bit later in the video, but very basically, you hire this from the owner of the car instead of a traditional car hire outlet. But like I said, I'll tell you a little bit more about that later in the video, plus also how you can get a discount just by using my code when you go to book a car yourself if you want to try it out as well. So let's get started by having a look around the car. I'm sure you know a lot about the Tesla Model 3 already, but this is my first time driving one, so I want to share with you my thoughts and opinions on exactly what you get for your money. So this particular Model 3 is the entry-level car. So it's the single motor, rear-wheel drive. It will do something like 450 kilometers of range for you and gets to 0 from 100 in about 5.5 seconds. So it's still pretty decently quick, still got a decent range, and it means you don't have to go mad and spend lots of money to get the high performance one or the long range one. The price for this is about $65,500, which isn't terribly expensive when you think of electric cars these days, because normally people think electric cars are stupidly expensive. You know, look at Porsche Taycan Turbo and stuff like that, they're just ridiculous money. But for what you actually get and what you actually pay, I think there's a pretty good value for money. So this car that I've got for the couple of days is actually one of the newer 2021 Chinese built cars. I don't know what too much of the differences are between the two. I've heard some people say that the newer ones are a little bit quicker, maybe slightly better built. I'm not too sure. So this is the only really one I've come across. So the car I've got for these couple of days is a 2021 Standard Range Plus, so it's the entry-level model. So it's only got the one motor on the rear wheels, and basically everything you see is standard. These wheels are 18-inch and they actually look like alloy wheels, but they're not. They're actually wheel covers, because you've got the wheels underneath the covers. But what's actually quite impressive to see, it's actually got Michelin Pilot Sport 4 tyres all the way around, which are fantastic really, because that's the sort of thing, you know, I've got on my Golf GTI and Mustangs have them and stuff like that, so actually a serious performance tyre. I like little things like you've got the cameras on the side of the car, but I love how it's sort of in a matte black finish. Same as the door handles and all the window surrounds as well. And along with the wheels and all those little black accents, it's got a nice sort of stormtrooper look to it, I suppose you'd call it. But I actually quite like the look of these in white with the black accents. It's probably no surprise why you see so many white ones on the road, to be honest. I think of all the Teslas I've seen, white is probably the most popular colour. And you're starting to see more and more of these things on the road now. There's heaps of them absolutely everywhere. I reckon every day going to work I see a Tesla Model 3. So yeah, you can definitely see they're getting a bit more of a following, I suppose, because yeah, there's more supercharger networks popping up here, there and everywhere, and it's becoming more acceptable, I suppose, to drive an electric car. So coming around to the back, it's actually quite a clean looking design. There's not sort of too many badges and bits and pieces everywhere. It just looks like a normal car from the back really, whereas the front obviously looks quite different. It's got, yeah, sort of a very unusual sort of look about it. But yeah, I quite like the look of it, and so I love this. So as I said earlier, this paint looks awesome in the sun. Really sort of sparkles. You've got some really cool standard equipment, rear sensors, rear camera. You've got the side sensors as well, so like the active park assist. As I said before, you've got that sunroof, which amazingly, on a hot day like today when it's like 34 degrees, the car inside doesn't actually get too hot, because like, obviously the glass is sort of very heavily tinted. But you'd still think that because there's no cover inside the sunroof, that the inside of the car would still get quite hot. But thankfully it doesn't, because yeah, you'd burn your legs on those leather seats. Electric boot is standard as well. And in there you've actually got quite a lot of space, much more than I'd expect. Yeah, it's quite a surprise when I opened the boot for the first time, and you know, just saw this massive sort of great space where you could sort of fill up. So yeah, quite impressive for such a small car. The charging port is really cleverly hidden in this rear side light. So it's not like some electric cars when you see this kind of like, well, I suppose it looks like a petrol filler cap on the side of the car. They've actually sort of integrated into there quite nicely, so you can't really see it. I quite like that idea. You've also got this frunk as well, or front trunk as they call it, It's an American term, I think. You know, we just adopted it like everything else. But yeah, it's definitely one of the more recognisable cars on the road. It's sort of like you see it coming towards you, it's a Tesla, you know exactly what it is. So you get this little plastic card, that's actually your key for getting in and out. But what you can actually do on the Tesla app, you can pair your key to your phone. So you can actually leave this key at home and just take your phone with you everywhere. I'd probably still keep this with me just in case something went wrong on my phone or the battery went flat or something stupid. But yeah, it's quite cool. This replaces your key and then your phone replaces this. So it's actually, in typical Tesla fashion, you'd half expect it really, because it's such a software company and they do such good tech things, that to be able to control most of your car with your phone, it's not really a big surprise, to be fair, is it? It's kind of half expected. Now interestingly, it says on this sticker 508 kilometres of range. How accurate that is, I don't know. Like any car on the road, you've got to take that with a pinch of salt. But even if you're getting 450 k's, which I think is more feasible, you know, you're more likely to get sort of 450. Still a decent range, because, you know, for one full charge you can drive 450 k's. Most people in a day definitely aren't going to do that sort of driving. Charging's actually quite quick. I plugged this in my garage overnight because I don't have a fast charger at home, and it got from, I think it was just under 60% all the way up to 100% in like 7.5, 8 hours, which I didn't think was too bad. I've had electric cars in the past which have taken much longer than that. I think one of the Hyundais I had was like 31 hours or something ridiculous. And obviously we all know the supercharging network that Tesla have, not just here in Australia but every country in the world, is probably the best network out there, because they cater purely for their cars. I know there's a few new ones that have just popped up in Melbourne and Victoria as well. So yeah, they are growing rapidly and getting a bigger charger network, which I think is what we need here in Australia for it to be mass adoption. A lot of people are still very sceptical about electric cars, but if there's a big enough network of being able to charge and, you know, charge quickly, then I think a lot more people will actually take it on board. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of the video that I've got this car from a company called Evee. So evee.com.au. It's basically an electric car sharing platform. So if you own a Tesla, you can basically list your car on the website, and then someone like me can come along and actually hire your car for anything from sort of a couple of days up to about 3 weeks. You get a really generous 250 kilometres per day allowance, and then obviously there's a penalty if you go over that. The excess is quite high in the insurance, it's about $3,000, but again, you can buy rental cover that reduces that right down, so you don't have to worry too much. For the 2 days I've got this car, it cost me just over $40 to get rid of the excess. Well worth paying. So what you do, if you want to hire a car as well, all you do is basically go onto the Evee website, as I said, evee.com.au, and there you'll see all the different cars that you can choose to hire. So it'll actually tell you what model it is, what age it is, whereabouts the car's located, so you can actually try and find a car close to where you live, and obviously that makes it much more convenient for you. So once you've chosen the car, you simply put in the dates that you'd like to hire the car for. It will tell you whether they're available and obviously how much it will then cost. And then all you've got to do is go ahead and book it just like you would a normal rental car. As I said earlier, Evee have actually given me a discount code to give to you guys. It's just Webby On Cars, no gaps in between. And that will give you $30 off your first hire for whatever car you choose to go with. So when you get to the checkout, there'll be a coupon code, so just literally type in there Webby On Cars and it will deduct $30 off of your first hire. And I have to say, it's a really good way of experiencing driving a Tesla. It does feel a lot more relaxed than going to your traditional sort of car hire outlet. You actually talk to the owner, they actually tell you stuff about the car and little tips and tricks of how to use things. The guy that I got this car from, Bruce, absolutely fantastic. The car was all ready for me when I picked it up. It was fully charged. He explained lots of how the controls work for me, how I can use my phone to get the most out of the car. I have to say it's been a really good experience. Something I'd definitely recommend to friends or family. Something I may even look to do again in the future. It just makes for a nice sort of experience and a nice, yeah, much more relaxed way of doing things, I think, to go through Evee. I'll also put a link in the description of the video, so you can click on the link which will take you straight to the Evee website and also give you that discount code as well. So yeah, click on the link below in the video, head over there, have a look. and hire yourself a Tesla for a few days or a few weeks, whichever you want to do. I'll show you a little bit inside the car now and show you some of my favourite features. I mentioned earlier about having the key on your phone. So when you walk away from the car, it actually locks itself as soon as you walk away. So that's quite a cool feature to have. And then as soon as you walk up and just pull the door handle, so you have to push in the end of that. There you go. So just like any other keyless entry system, it recognises you're next to the car and just lets you open the door, which is pretty cool. As we come in, we all know what a Tesla interior looks like, don't we? But whenever you see one in person, it's always really, really impressive. It takes a little bit of getting used to be fair, but once you've been driving it for sort of an hour or so, it's actually quite good. I do like stuff like this sort of wood sort of here on the doors and everything that carries over to the dash as well. It's sort of quite modern and contemporary, especially with the little sort of silver door trim underneath it as well. This car's got the black interior. You can choose white as well as a cost option. Well, if you've got kids, don't know if that's a good idea. Driver's seat is fully electrically operated, and you can actually save your settings onto your key, so when you get in it saves your memory positions basically, and that's the same for the steering wheel and the mirrors. So yeah, nice big glass roof, and so the dashboard is very strange. There's no speedo in front of you. When you start driving, your immediate thing to sort of look for straight in front of you is obviously the speedo, but the speedo pops up just about here on the top right hand corner of the screen. Takes a little bit of getting used to, but after a while it's just sort of second nature. Obviously we've then got the big screen which kind of does everything for you, whether you want to watch Netflix, YouTube, look at your sat nav, play some music, adjust the controls of the car. As we know, that's where you do it. It's actually really impressive. You've even got things like your air conditioning is over this side, so you can just put your finger up and down, you can change the fan speed. And you can sort of use this one here, which adjusts where the airflow comes to. So yeah, it's fun to use. It's not like a normal car, you just turn your aircon on and kind of let it do its thing. It's actually quite fun to use this screen to do your aircon. Some people might think it's a little bit of a pain in the backside, but I actually think it's quite cool. Actually, looking over this side, you've probably heard of the dog setting. So what you can actually do is, if you're going to leave your dog in the car, you press the dog, and then what it does is it will turn on the aircon full blast, as you can probably hear. It's quite loud now. But then once you get out and lock the car, a big message comes up on the screen. So if someone looks in your car and sees your dog getting a bit hot, they'll see a message to say that the car's in dog mode, the air conditioning's switched on. You haven't got to worry about your dog overheating or dying from heat exhaustion. I hope you heard all that because the fan got a little bit loud then. But it's very intuitive to use. If you've got an iPhone or a Samsung or any type of smartphone, using this system is kind of second nature really. It's such an easy thing to do. As you can see, you've got some of the car settings there. If you press the little car button, it brings up a whole heap of other stuff as well. So things like opening the glove box, folding the mirrors, adjusting the steering wheel. Because there's no buttons anywhere on the dashboard, everything is done through this screen. Which can be a bit fiddly sometimes, but on other occasions it's like, well, I don't need to adjust my mirrors every day, so once you've adjusted your mirrors you kind of just leave them as they are. But I think it's quite cool. I do like it. Obviously you've got things like navigation, so you can set up all your navigation just like any other car. You can choose different preferences, so it's actually quite cool. You've got different steering modes, stopping modes for your regenerative braking. The hold is probably a good one to use because you can then use the car with one pedal, so you just use the accelerator pretty much to brake and accelerate, so it's actually quite good. You can look at things like charge. You can open the charge port, you can lock it, unlock it rather. Yeah, and there's just a whole heap of stuff you can use. But then we've also got cool stuff. So if we press these little three dots here, that brings up some more menus as well. And if you hit your theatre button, that's where you find your Netflix, your YouTube, your Twitch, and actually really handily some videos for how to use your Tesla. So if you've just got your car or just about to get one, you can actually watch these Tesla tutorial videos, which I did watch before I picked the car up and actually found quite handy. Your arcade is where you find your games. That is very, very cool. I was playing that earlier with my son, and we were just sitting there doing this beach buggy racing and sat in a supermarket car park, getting some quite strange looks from people passing by, I might add, but that's part of the fun, I think. So when you're actually sat in the front of this Tesla Model 3, the front seats are really supportive. They're made out of what they call vegan leather, so it's this sort of man-made artificial sort of leather look material, and it's really soft and supple, and it's really comfortable. They're heated as well in the front seats. The only thing I wish they had in here was actually ventilated front seats, because that's something that, you know, a lot of cars are starting to do these days, and particularly on a hot day like today would actually be really, really handy. The actual driving position though is really comfortable. The steering wheel sort of dead straight in front of you, and as I said earlier, you've only got like 2 pedals to worry about. But yeah, so the vision out the front is superb. You've got a massive windscreen. Visibility out the side is really good as well. Sometimes you do get a bit of a blind spot with this front A pillar, you know, particularly sort of like at junctions or if someone's crossing the road. You've got to be a little bit careful, but I guess that depends exactly where you've got your seat position. Coming into the back of the Tesla, and the rear seats are just as comfortable as those in the front. You get a decent amount of leg room, but you can't actually fit your feet under the front seat, so you can't quite stretch out as far as you'd really want to. But having said that, you can see I've got acres of legroom back here, which is really nice. We've got rear air vents in the back as well, which is another welcome feature. And you've also got 2 USB-C fast charging points in the back as well. Really handy if you've got young kids back here playing on phones or tablets, because they absolutely chew through the power. Headroom in the back isn't too bad. I'm quite lucky sort of being fairly short, but if you had someone who's like 6 foot plus, they might sort of struggle to get in the back here, because this rear window really sort of slopes down towards the boot. So yeah, anybody sitting in the back over 6 foot is going to probably find it a little bit sort of uncomfortable. You still get all the niceties that you expect on a car these days. We've got this fold down armrest with a couple of cup holders. We've got the ISOFIX child fixings in sort of the outer 2 passengers as well. So it's got all the normal sort of stuff back here. Now I've read a lot of comments about poor build quality and bad paint finishes and, you know, panel gaps and bits and pieces like that. But as I said earlier, this is one of the newer Chinese built cars. And I haven't found any sort of build problems at all. There's been no panel gaps. I couldn't see any you know, poor materials or anything like that. Whether that's something they've improved just because it's a Chinese built one, or whether that's just something they've improved overall, I don't quite know. But either way, I think the build quality on this is pretty good, to be fair. And you'd certainly look at this and think, yeah, that's worth 65 grand. I wouldn't be complaining, you know, if this turned up on my doorstep. So let's take the Tesla Model 3 for a drive now, and actually experience what it's like on the road, because it is quite unlike any other car you've probably experienced. I've been lucky enough to drive a couple of different electric cars from BMW, Hyundai, and that type of thing. But I think Tesla to me is like the original electric car, because yeah, they sort of come out, not necessarily come with the idea first, but they've progressed it quicker than every other brand has. It feels like an electric car in here, it doesn't feel like a normal car. So that gives you, I don't know, it just feels like a bit of a spaceship in it. For any of you that have sat in one, driven one, owned one, you probably know exactly what I mean by that sort of saying. The fact that you've just got this massive great screen, nothing else in front of you, does feel very, very strange at first. And it takes a little bit of getting used to, especially things like, you know, when you're looking ahead of you, there's no speedo in front of you. You've got to look slightly to your left to look on the screen to find that sort of information. But it does, you get used to it really, really quickly, surprisingly. I thought I was going to really struggle, but even after sort of half an hour or so, you sort of just find yourself looking over to the left to look at the speedo, just to sort of find out where all the information is. And having that big screen, particularly if you're putting, you know, directions into the sat nav or something like that, then having that big screen is just so much easier to see what's happening. You don't take your eyes off the road so long, so it almost becomes like a safety feature because it is so big. But either way, let's take this car for a drive, see what we think, and yeah, I'll share my thoughts and opinions with you. On with the sunnies, because It is 33 degrees outside today. It's jolly warm and it's very bright and sunny. So yeah, sunnies are an absolute must today. Now with any electric car, the Tesla is very quiet inside, to the point where you can almost hear more outside noise than you can what's going on inside the cabin, because you've got no engine noise, you know, you've got nothing to sort of hide anything, you know, noises coming into the car. But it does make for a very sort of relaxed sort of driving environment inside. You can have a conversation with your passengers, whether they're sat in the front or in the back, really easily. Purely because it's very quiet in here. It's really nice having this big panoramic glass roof. I was worried a bit because I thought, particularly on a hot day like today, that the car would just be like a greenhouse when you got in, just because of so much glass in the car. But I was actually pleasantly surprised to get in, and you know, it wasn't absolutely roasting, and you know, you didn't burn your legs on the seats as soon as you sat down. So like most automatic cars, the Tesla has only got a brake and an accelerator pedal. And if you set the regen braking up to its strongest setting, you can actually get away pretty much with just using the accelerator. Because on that strong setting, as soon as you lift your foot off the accelerator, it automatically starts to brake. And it'll brake fairly quickly if you literally lift your foot off really quickly as well. So the trick is to sort of regulate your foot on the accelerator pedal, and then you can literally just use the accelerator for braking and accelerating. It takes a little bit of time to get used to that, obviously, but once you've got the hang of it, it's actually quite a neat idea. The ride is actually pretty good. When you're on a sort of a normal road surface, it's no different to any other car. It does get a little bit upset if you go over a bumpy road or you hit a pothole, just because of the nature of how heavy this thing weighs. But yeah, just sort of general driving, absolutely fine. I do find it quite interesting how many Model 3s you actually see on the road nowadays. Just in the sort of 24 hours or so I've been driving this car, I've seen them everywhere. Even stopped for lunch yesterday and, you know, parked next to another Tesla. There was another one in the car park. And yeah, they just seem to be all over the place now. I guess the fact that, you know, this model here starts at $65,000 drive away isn't terribly expensive, and certainly not for the technology you get, you know, included. You know, it's not as expensive as some electric vehicles. I mean, you can go to the mid-range or the top of the range and obviously spend more money. But if you're not going to be doing lots of long journeys, or you don't want the fastest car out there, this base model would be perfect. It would do sort of like 450 k's for a charge. 0 to 100 is about 5.5 seconds. So it's plenty quick enough for, you know, everyday journeys. I remember the first time I ever saw a Tesla Model 3, and because it was so new and different and exciting, and, you know, just different in the way it looks, it was quite a thing to actually see a Tesla on the road. But even now that I see them much more regularly, you still sort of get that excitement. It's like, oh, there's a Tesla. And not many cars have that sort of attraction. I guess because it is a little bit different and unique from not just any other car, but any other electric car. But yeah, it just has that sort of like excitement. It's almost like, you know, you're 8 years old again and you've seen a sports car for the first time. So that's my video review of this 2021 Tesla Model 3 Standard Range Plus. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you've got any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below for me. I'll come back to you as soon as I can. Don't forget, if you want to try out the Evee car sharing platform, there's a link in the description so you can get a $30 discount off of your first hire. Or you can just put the code Webby On Cars into the discount code when you get to the checkout. Again, thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing you all in the next one.